Let me tell you what's wrong with that. If your sister lived across the street from me, and I see 100 guys coming out of her apartment, I can have all kinds of opinions. When you ask me, what does she do? I would say, I don't know. That's the most difficult thing for people to say. I used to ask people, do you think we'll ever get to the moon? They said, no, not in 1,000 years. I said, is that your field? They say, no, that's my opinion. But we don't want the opinions of people. We want, do you have information in that area? And if you don't, just say, I don't know. You think man will ever get to Mars? I don't know. It's not my field. We have to learn how to say, I don't know, and give an opinion about everything, such as the Venus Project will never work. Point out what you think won't work and give me a chance to answer that. I don't want your opinion. I want your question.
You were asking about the cities in the next 10 to 15 years. You know, that just depends, and what we expected with those. It really depends on what people do in regards to that. Jaques and I have no power. We have no money. Jaques has spent all his life arriving at this direction, working with people, changing them, working technically to show what the cities could look like, what efficient, clean, resourceful cities could look like that would be a pleasant place to live. He has developed what the future could be like technically, but we have no access to the media. It depends on what other people do to get this information out there as to whether it will come about or not. People ask, when are we going to build these new cities? We're always working at it. We're always trying to make contacts, but it depends on how many other people are aware of this and work towards it. So we can tell you what we would like the cities to be. They've already been designed. We're working on animations to introduce them to people. We have blueprints, we have models, we have renderings. We would like to make a movie to show what life in the city would look like and what the value system would look like. Hopefully, if we got the first city going, it would be like a university city. It would be a city where people would come to work on this direction, making films, making books, making videos, doing magazines, radio, television, and working on the automated systems for the next cities to automate as many cities as possible. Perhaps have a theme park of the future there to show what a full-blown resource-based economy of the future would look like. But, you know, and then people would come to that city from all over the world and go back and do cities in their area of the world. But things are falling apart all over today, and they're protesting and they don't like what's going on, but they have no real alternatives. The Venus Project is a real viable alternative, and it's not just wishes, what the cities technically would look like. It gives you a physical reference of that as well.
We also feel it's not enough to criticize your society. If you just criticize it and you don't offer an alternative, you leave people in midair.
Leanne has another question. She says, have you come across certain areas of the country or world where people seem more prone to support the Venus Project? And do there seem to be concentrated pockets where people seem to be a little more aware than their counterparts in other areas?
All over the world, people are very interested in the Venus Project. It's just the United States. It's very difficult to get on NBC, CBS, because they're owned by large corporations and they're afraid of new ideas that might threaten their positions of advantage. You understand that? For example, GE owns NBC, or CBS rather, and anything that would threaten their existence would not be put on the air.
Unfortunately, they own armament companies as well, so they make a lot of money out of war. So you see a push for war all over the industry, all over the media. I know during the Iraq War, anybody who was talking against it was pushed off the air, even in universities. They didn't let any of that go. They were glorifying war and killing, and it was very controlled. They wouldn't show the coffins coming back.
For example, soldiers are killing machines. They're just taught how to kill, how to drop bombs, how to fly airplanes, how to direct guided missiles. If we of the Venus Project had anything to do with it, all the soldiers would be sent back to school to become problem solvers. We have a lot of unsolved problems: cancer, heart disease, scarcity. And so people would become problem solvers. That's what it's all about. It's not about killing people. The society you live in is very old, and it reflects very old values. And it is not subject to rapid change.
Forgotten by my mother, my country, she leaves me here, alone and abandoned, circumvented by a system designed to pay mine to the wars of these rich men. Oh, 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 God grant me some assistance. What is this insistence dismissing these visions of equality? No matter, I'll carry on. But dear God, I'm thanking you for giving me strength that I can live through this end. Dear God, I'm praising you for giving me courage that I can be true to myself. Ooh yeah, ooh yeah.
Matt, when we were talking last night, you had mentioned about greed and how people do so many things for money, but that you don't think that necessarily we could live without money or trade, as the Venus Project promotes. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, first of all, it's an honor to be online with you folks right now. Thank you very much for your time. I think a lot about conditionality and kind of like going through different periods of kind of developing a theory about how people, I don't really study psychology, but much like Piaget studied developmental psychology, he just loved his children, so he watched everything that they did and became like a leading developmental psychologist. So I don't know if I'm going to come up with anything interesting, but interesting to myself, I like to see people as machine learners, as computers that grow and become different things as they receive different information over time. So I see a lot of things that you touched on. War, I'm in college now, and it's very disappointing to hear all the awards and all of the research always being linked to something in the military. And I really don't think that it's always just what it seems on the surface. I think that, there's a lot of money-making racket, and it's not just, well, we have to uphold national security. I think a lot of times it is just, cranking up the prices of the missiles, and there's nothing going on now, so we have to start something. And it's extra disappointing to sort of get blank stares from people that have devotion to education and integrity that are in the system. When I say, wow, it would be so interesting if there was money, and money is power, if this interest, this investment was given to those in education, and then when somebody wanted to go to war, they would write to their local professors and say, hey, can we go to war with these people? Instead of the other way around. We write to the military and say, are we allowed to study this? Can we study that? I mean, it really doesn't make sense. And they know it, we all know it. And it's really disappointing just to kind of get that sort of like, well, there's nothing we can do about it because that's the way it is. And it's the way it is because that's the way it was. So yeah, I really love the comment that was made just a little bit ago about being sort of in the tail end of the medieval period, because it's at first a little striking, but then it really seems to be a sensible and realistic assessment.
Some people want to go back to the good old days. There were never any good old days. In Salem, Massachusetts, they used to burn witches. We had slavery in the old days. We had child labor. And everybody that fought to get rid of those conditions tried to make the world a better place. But it wasn't easy. You got to remember, making a sane world is not an easy project.